call finance to order.
We'll call personnel to order. First order of business, Melissa, you're on, right? Not on my agenda.
Morning.
Melissa?
Yep.
There we go. You want to go ahead, public defender?
Okay, the first request was from the public defender. They have a supervising assistant public defender who has asked to go to a part-time status. So the public defender is asking to backfill the supervising assistant public defender as well as to backfill an assistant public defender part-time.
These were all cleared through the Public Safety Committee?
They were.
And is there a change in the staffing pattern?
The staffing pattern will remain the same.
So it's just a backfill of existing positions?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion? Don, second? Lester? No? No? Dave? Dave, okay. Discussion? Mr. Lett?
Melissa, he's asking to backfill the supervising and the part-time, which in theory is going to leave a regular unfilled. Is he waiting to ask for permission for that later?
I
This
was
will be
waiting
rotating ones.
15 seconds for my first approvals to be approved, and then I was going to bring that one up.
Oh, sorry.
Jump the gun.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Appears to be carried. Okay, Melissa.
Okay, and as the treasurer mentioned, the public defender will also have an assistant public defender position, which is full-time, 35 hours a week, that he would like to backfill.
We have a motion? Moved by Dave, seconded by Don. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. ESS, Melissa?
DSS has a principal account clerk position currently on the staffing pattern. The commissioner would like to fill that position with a bookkeeper, which would be a staffing pattern change.
Okay, and that would be bump down or bump up?
That would be a decrease to the current position.
Okay, grade decrease, okay. Do I have a motion? David? Second? Don? Discussion? This will go to the full board, right, Melissa?
Yes, that would have to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And then,
The commissioner also will have a senior account clerk position vacant. She would like to backfill that position. That's the position that will actually be promoting to the bookkeeper position. I would like to request that backfill to be approved at either a senior account clerk or an account clerk, depending on who we have to fill that position.
okay, so we would move it pending your approval on the title?
Yes, we have posted the position internally, so we just have to see what candidates are interested in filling it. Hopefully we can fill it with a senior account clerk, but I just wanted to ask for the account clerk in case we are unable to find a senior account clerk.
Okay. Do I have a motion? David? Second? Don? Any discussion? Al?
Me again, sorry. Melissa, if it does have to be filled with an account clerk, that will be a staffing pattern change though, right?
Yes, and at that point, I would come back to the board to ask for that.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved, carried. Next, case order?
Yes, the commissioner also has a caseworker who has resigned from that position the end of August, and they would like to backfill that caseworker position. The rate was $23.84. It would be backfilled at the rate of $22.72.
Moved by David, seconded by Sue. Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next.
Also in the Department of Social Services, they have an account clerk who has been out of work for medical reasons. And at this point, the commissioner would like to backfill that position temporarily in the child support unit. So again, that's just a temporary fill of an account clerk. This is something that in the past I have been able to approve. But given the circumstances and just wanting to make sure that all the supervisors are on board with filling positions, I wanted to bring this to the committee for your approval.
So we would hire somebody temporarily until the person comes back from medical leave, and then they would come back into their original position.
Yes.
Okay. Moved by David. Do I have a second? Don? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public health.
Public health, they have an emergency preparedness coordinator infection control position. This position they would like to eliminate from the staffing pattern and add one RN full-time. This also is a decrease in the rate of pay that this person would receive. And this is a staffing pattern change.
And Sue, I think this was cleared through public health, right? Through HHS? Okay. Do I have a motion? Dave, second? Sue? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next.
That is all that I have for staffing requests. So do you have
Okay. Go ahead, Melissa.
with other, I just wanted to mention that we do have retirement acknowledgements that on the agenda for the next board meeting for 5 retirements, and we will have the retirement frames available. We've sent letters out to the people that are eligible for the frames, the nice slate frames that we have with their certificate in it. And those people will be asked to make an appointment to pick up the frame directly from the personnel office. But we do have 5 retirements coming out.
Okay.
Next, there was a change to the New York election law, section 3110. If you remember, last year in 2019, all employees were eligible for 3 hours off from work in order to vote. Those 3 hours had to be given to the employees if they requested, either at the beginning of the shift or the ending of the shift. And the employees had to notify their supervisor not less than 2 working days prior to the day of the election. So we did do that last year. All of our employees were eligible. We did have some take advantage of that law. There was a change this year to that same law, New York State Election Law 3-110. This now allows for employees to have up to 2 hours of paid time off to vote if they don't have sufficient time to vote. Eligible employees have to notify their employer at least 2 working days prior to taking the paid time off to vote, but not more than 10 days prior to taking the time off. The key word here, I guess, is sufficient time to vote. So if you have either 4 hours, 4 consecutive hours before your working shift or 4 consecutive hours after your working shift to vote, then that would be deemed sufficient time to vote, and you would not be given this extra time.
Okay, so if a request comes through, it'll be vetted through your office to make sure it falls within that, those parameters, right?
Yeah, if there's any questions, department heads at the county have all been made aware of this change. So if they have any questions, of course, they can call the office anytime.
Anybody have any questions on that for Melissa? Okay, anything else on the agenda, Melissa?
Just my 2021 budget request.
Okay. Let's see, that's what, 5 and 36, I think the revenue's on page 5. There is much,
Revenue, fortunately, no.
okay,
Okay, so the revenue that you are going to see under civil service, the $2,100 is what we estimate to have for exam fees. The other revenue that you're going to see is the general services EAP. That actually is a number that we take in from the town and villages to pay in the EAP services. We bill them and then the money comes back. So you're going to see it as a revenue there, but an expense in my other section.
all right, and you're requesting the same revenue as 2020,
Yeah,
okay? And the expenses are on page 36, I believe,
yes.
36 and 37.
There is a slight increase going to see with some of my expenses. Interesting that some of the expenses that other departments have been able to cut on with me, there's actually going to be a slight increase. And the reason for that is that the New York State civil service exams, so many have been rescheduled from this year. I'm waiting for a schedule from New York State Civil Service to determine when those exams are going to be given. So as I look at it right now, we're going to have a busy year next year, making up for the exams we were not able to give this year due to COVID. Many of the exams, I believe, may actually warrant giving them maybe over 2 days instead of one. So instead of maybe a Saturday exam, we may actually have to have Saturday and Sunday. But that'll be determined as the schedule comes out. And of course, that may actually affect our revenue as well. It's possible we'll have a slight increase to the revenue if exams go as expected. But I didn't really want to put the cart before the horse and increase that revenue at this point. So,
Anybody have questions on page 36 to 37 regarding civil service expenses? Mr. Budget Officer, you're good?
I'm good. At this point.
If there are no questions, Melissa, is there anything else on the agenda from personnel you need to deal with today?
the only other thing I have in my agenda are the 2021 staffing requests from departments. We don't have many this year. Actually only have 3 at this point. And I don't expect any more to come in. So I would like to just make you all aware of those requests.
Could you make us aware of that today and then maybe in writing, provide it for finance on Thursday? That'd be helpful to you, Brian?
Yeah, that'll work.
Sure.
Okay.
So the first department request came from DPW. They currently have an account clerk position. They would like to upgrade that account clerk to senior account clerk. Currently, the hourly rate for next year would be $17.68 an hour. If the increase is approved and the promotion to senior account clerk is approved, that would be $19.05 an hour. This is an increase of $2,860 for that department.
And have you sort of looked that over to see regarding the duties and where that should fall in this situation?
Yes, that has been the case. I believe they had a senior account clerk in that position prior, and that would be a normal upgrade.
Okay.
Within a family of positions, if you will.
He's getting cocky about Melissa. He's getting a little offensive, a little forward on this whole thing.
Just pointing it out, Mr. Chairman.
Should make for a grand discussion when we get to it.
At some point. Okay. The second one?
The second one is also from DPW. They have a bridge repair person to be added to the staffing pattern. If you recall, we did take one off the staffing pattern probably about a couple months ago. But Deb is at this point asking to have a bridge repair person added to the staffing pattern in 2021. This would be a full-time year-round position. Annual salary is $42,595.
And this replaces a worker too, am I correct?
Correct.
And that number is, without benefits, is closer to 65 with the cost, right?
That's correct. Without benefits.
It's basically would be the difference between the two if we do away with the worker two and replace it with the.
But we already made the swap already, didn't we? At one point, didn't we take away a worker two and add a bridge person? Now they want to add another bridge person. This is on top of that. This is not. This is an addition, additional
This
person.
one is totally additional, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. All right, that's the second one.
And the final staffing request for 2021 was from the Department of Public Safety. They have asked for us to review the title by grade schedule as it pertains to the communication officers per diems.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so the request from Public Safety is to look at the title by grade schedule for the per diem communications officers. We are in the process right now of starting negotiations with the full-time communications officers. Therefore, I think any discussion about this request would impact our potential negotiations. And if we wanted to discuss it, I would request that we consider an executive session for collective bargaining matters pursuant to the Taylor Law.
Okay, but you're, at this point today, Melissa, you're just making us aware of this, that the request has come in.
Correct.
We don't need to get too deep into the weeds today, do we?
I guess that depends if you would like to talk about it more.
According to whether you want the explanation of why.
Well, if I have a choice, I would prefer that you document these in writing, get them emailed to us, and then bring it up in finance on
It would still be
Thursday.
executive session
I
either way.
know, but at least everyone would have it in front of them. Plus, we have a limited number of people here. If I want to discuss it, I want to discuss it in front of 17 instead of in the executive session.
But it won't be, that'd be on paper, because how do you collect them? It's not like you can send them out. I mean,
No, a
you can put
request.
it on the
It's a
screen and
request.
disappear,
Put
but-
it on the screen.
Yeah, it's a request to upgrade. That's all we got to put in the paper.
Yep.
Okay, is that okay to do, Melissa? Get it to someone so we can get it out, and then we can deal with it
And
in
we,
that regard
and we
on
will just
Thursday.
expect that, we'll expect the executive session on Thursday then, so we can have the discussion. Very good.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding that or anything else on the personnel agenda? I can't tell if Al's raising his hand or he's that superhero with his hand out in front, you know, that he's a flash, and if he's running at us too fast, I can't tell if he's there.
I don't know, he was ahead of himself there earlier when
That's right.
Melissa was coming with the next thing, so.
He's the flash.
Yeah, so maybe he should get rid of the flash and go back to whatever he had. Okay.
Any questions? Okay, I guess we're done with the personnel. I guess I can adjourn that and turn it over to IT.
Perfect.
You want to come up here, Jim?
I can do it from here.
We should, you and I are in charge here. Deb's in charge. We're going to do whatever she says.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine if you want to stay there.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it doesn't go into.
All right.
That bow tie, you can do anything. The balloon knows.
Cambridge colors. isn't it?
Close. Cambridge Inn was a policy. I'd like to call the IT committee meeting to order. First order of business, accept the minutes from the September 8th committee meeting. Motion by Sue, second by Don. All in favor? Any conversation? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Roger Wick, County Attorney, Cybersecurity Report.
And here I am, hopefully unmuted.
Yep, you're good.
We got you.
So we have this month, our report, interestingly enough, you can see how we're kind of got back to full speed over the summer or close to full speed. because our email transactions were rather steady for those 3 months rather than the dip you saw during the COVID outing and everything. So about 180,000 emails a month were either coming or going from our servers at any one time for July, August, and September. One thing we have was a spike in potential incidents, and I'm trying to get more information on that unless Terry can tell us what it is, but August was way, way up for some reason over the other two, July and September. Do you have any idea why that was, Terry?
I'm not, honestly, Roger, I'm not sure what you're looking at. I don't.
Okay, I'm looking at the report, and that's going to get mailed out because it really doesn't fit well on the screen, but there's a graph for our security statistics, and July and August, or July and September are fairly consistent, but August had a big spike in it, and we're trying to figure out why that is. Next month, I can tell you that we'll have a different kind of report for you, but I don't really want to talk to you about what it is because it's still ongoing. So just so you know, we blocked malware for the month, last month, 1,014 email-based attempts to insert malware into our system, and 13 web-based attempts. So this is the kind of system where the folks in IT and Karen only have to be wrong once, unfortunately. But so far, knock on wood, we've been doing okay. And the other thing we've been tracking, and Terry can probably talk to you a little more about what it means directly for us, is the Tyler company that does a lot of our software, especially for Al, had some kind of intrusion. It's been characterized several different ways as the company's responded to it, but they're one of our major software vendors. And there's the report. So that big spike in, thanks Debbie, the big spike in August there is kind of concerning. It didn't happen nothing happened to us, but there was a big increase in August, and I'll try to get you more information on that.
I remember what I did in August.
Yeah, well.
It'll come back to you when we find it.
Well,
How did I do that again?
the good news is we blocked it. So
Yeah.
we're doing well. But back to the Tyler incident, and maybe Al can weigh in on that too if he wants to, but we do an awful lot of business with them in terms of a lot of our financial software, I think it is, in New World, and they had a fairly major intrusion. They didn't seem to, of course, the company never does seem to think it's a problem, and it's been covered nationally, so it's no secret. It's been covered in several prominent journals, but we do deal quite a bit with them, and I'll kick to Terry. I didn't warn her I was going to do this, but I'll kick it over to her to talk to you a little bit about our concerns. I don't think we're massively concerned, but we're paying attention to make sure that we shouldn't be concerned.
Yeah, they had a very large ransomware incident inside their environment, which is interesting. It's not a big concern for us because we're not hosted to them. All of our data, everything resides here on our network. The only ties we have to them is really our support accounts. And so there was no chance even of us having a breach.
But they do a lot of business with a lot of governments. So governments, especially this time of year, coming close to the election and everything, are big time targets. So we're ever vigilant, and so far so good. We've been doing a lot of work with elections and a lot of work with intrusion detection and then notification if we see one. But as we all have to remember, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day, our machines are not hooked up to the network. The voting machines aren't internet capable. They go to a card, and the card comes back here and is put in an air gapped machine. So if somebody tells you that somebody's going to hack our machines through the internet, that shouldn't be possible, because the way, and that's the way New York's system's set up. Other states do use internet connected machines, which could lead to various problems, but New York's system isn't like that, and our system's not like that. So as long as we handle everything the way we're supposed to handle it, we should be fairly confident that that's not going to be one of our problems. And that's pretty much it for cybersecurity this month.
All right, any questions for Roger? Go ahead, Al.
Not necessarily a question, but more of a thank you to Roger and Karen and Terry, and by extension, the whole Board of Supervisors. Your investment in Karen's position continues to pay off. I can tell you that my department has had 2 incidences in the past 2 weeks that I'm not sure a year or 2 ago we would have noticed as suspicious. They were pretty genuine looking emails that came through, one to myself and one to my payroll clerk. Through the education of Roger and Karen and Terry, we now kind of know some things to look for. We're better educated as a department. So I really want to thank them because obviously we have some pretty sensitive material down here and we really don't want to see any breaches. And the awareness now at the department level has gone up, 10,000 fold. So just a thank you to the team.
And it's ever continuing. Right before the meeting, I got a text from my daughter saying that she'd gotten something on a call on the phone saying her social security number was blocked for criminal activity. She realized it wasn't real. She just wanted to make sure that I knew that was happening. So, those calls are still going out to the real world too, and folks need to be aware. And, the grandparent calls are still out there, all kinds of scams. It's not just computers, it's the phone, it's your email, it's texts. So when you're talking to your constituents, it's something you probably should emphasize to a lot of them, especially the folks that aren't tech savvy. They get those messages and boy, they look real. They have all kinds of, official seals and official logos and everything. And they can fool somebody who doesn't pay attention or gets worried before they think it through. So, the Social Security Administration is not going to call you and say, hey, give us a call. You're doing something criminal. They're either going to show up at your door with a bunch of agents or do something else. They're not going to call you and say, call us back. But folks can get worried when they get official looking things like that.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Roger. Anything else for Roger? All right. Thank you very much. On to Terry.
So I can share my screen for the project report to give you an update, and then we can go through the budget that we're, actually, it won't let me share my screen. I could just talk about the project report. There's not a lot changed on it. The main addition to the project this month has been the kickoff of the software project. So we started moving that forward to get that in place, I'm hoping, by next month.
What's the percent on that?
The percent on I believe so for the software installation, I have it at 10% because we kicked it off and started building the service.
Okay.
So we're just in that process, but we do have it laid out, so I don't anticipate an issue. We have everything we need. We were waiting on the licensing from the vendor. It's the last thing that we were waiting on.
Expectation of the licensing?
Last week. So I haven't heard yet, but I'm expecting
Tomorrow.
early this week. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, everybody is implementing solutions like this, and so with the implementation, it slows people down. Yeah. Other than that, we haven't kicked off much of any new. We got kicked off on the mobile device management, but still moving that forward.
Any questions for Terry on any of the projects out there? On to budget review. Revenues, I believe, page 7, right, budget officer?
Yep, that's where we're at.
So from a budget perspective, I believe I've put together a conservative budget for you folks that will allow, obviously in these hard times, for us to maintain a good financial position, but also continue to move IT forward and in a good direction. I've worked each year on trying to reorganize it a little bit. So as we go through and take a look at it, if you have any suggestions or things that would make it easier for you all to see, let me know. But I try to put them in a way that allows the budget to be consolidated, all the expenses to be consolidated in the IT department for you to still be able to tell which departments ultimately have the benefit of some of the software and those types of things. So any feedback would be great on that. And then the third thing I wanted to mention before we get too far into it is, in the past, we've tried to do expenses of approximately $150,000 a year for capital projects. We've been asked to not do that and to incorporate those in the budget, so that is incorporated in the budget this year. So from a revenue standpoint, we don't really have a lot of revenue other than some shared employees that we send out to DSS is the primary source of any shared revenue. It's not in my copy. I don't know if that's in the copy you guys do.
It did make our copy, yep.
Okay.
So there's $93,000 on that interdepartmental revenue. and that's the DSS chargeback that Terry was just alluding to.
Well, I have a question that goes to the day and a half sign shop. Could we change data processing to information technology, because nobody calls it data processing here? Just for, is that a possibility, or can we change that?
That's an Albert question.
Yeah, Al says yes.
Al says yes, so I just think that now it's always called IT, that we should just change it so there's no,
The role has changed a lot over the years. I think probably we used to process data, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of printing,
Yep.
a lot of, and now it's really taken
and we
over.
hired a lot of typists there, typists anymore too,
Yeah,
so.
probably true.
I guess my question for Al is, is that a full heading change, or is it data processing dash information technology?
Albert's on the phone.
Okay.
We'll find out later. We'll know the tentative budget.
When I first started, we used to print.
Sorry, Chairman, I missed your question.
Question was, so is that a full title change on the GL to say information technology, or would it be data processing dash information technology for consistency year-over-year analyzation?
I'd like to just see it change to information technology, because that's their true name now.
Okay.
As long as you spell it forward instead of backwards, like behind Al. That would be really confusing.
We would then understand though.
Thanks, Al.
Okay.
Any other questions on revenues?
Expenses are in 43.
Start on 43 with expenses.
So, would you folks like me to go through each category line by line, or do you want to take a look at it and ask questions, or what would work best for?
That's always the question, isn't it?
All right.
I have a question though.
Go right ahead.
So, this is an assumption. So I see under employee benefits, when you went from one big pool, now you've broken it out, I would assume you have found a lot of things in there that you can adjust and saying it needs to be allocated here more, in here less, and it created a better, more streamlined, accurate
Yes.
number, right?
Just the opposite.
You reduced $50,000 and
It's the most accurate when you see it in a whole, because it's the whole number.
So,
When you break it down, especially when we don't budget it, the 2 years that were prior were not budgeted that way, so then it got just broke down, where it got spread across by percentages, trying to come close to get an idea, where it needs to be broke down more
We
specific.
drove into the numbers as opposed to backing it.
Right, and the problem is that it's gonna change according to the employees, and we only control the employees, not what their benefits are. So it's never gonna be exact or totally accurate.
well, why would we,
But
if we've
then
already
it gets
spent,
budget to plan anyway.
if we already spent $88,000 this year in health insurance, why would we only budget 94 for next year?
because, so the budget officer is exactly right. In my opinion, the most accurate way for you as the board to look at those fringe benefit numbers is in the aggregate. That's why I had moved it to the bottom of the fund. And really what you are seeing anecdotally here in each department is indicative of overall, the health insurance cost for the county went down by about $2 million for next year.
There's the answer right
That's what it is.
That's the answer.
It's easier to see that when it's all on one line, right? Because you see the big $2 million. If you're astute and you're looking in each department, you're seeing, wow, why would that go down? Health insurance never goes down. That's what you're seeing there.
But overall though, just because you break it down doesn't mean you still can't look at it from an aggregate standpoint.
So that's
If you
right.
only look at it from an aggregate standpoint, you don't get the breakdown.
So, kind of. The only way, at least in my mind, that I can budget it is in the aggregate, right? So what I do is I look at the annual claims
Yep.
year over year, come up with a trend, figure out what we think for renewal. That's our big number. Then, like Brian was saying, with putting it in each department, we've got to figure out a way to take that $6.2 million and put it in all the departments. I think what we did this year was just a percentage of payroll.
It's just insurance.
It'll get more refined and more accurate. as we go
Because
along.
your retirement and your other stuff is all dependent, each employee has those.
So, FICA and retirement are easier because
Yeah.
they're a percentage of payroll,
Right.
right? Retirement gets a little bit muddy now with the different tiers. Because a tier 6 might be 19%, a tier 4 might be 19%, but a tier 6 might only be 7%. So that gets a little bit muddy because it's based on what the tier makeup of the particular department is. Your bigger departments like the sheriff and DSS, it all kind of washes out. There's enough of them. In a small department, if you have a long-term tier 4 employee who retires and is replaced by a base rate tier 6, that's going to be a huge breakage in your retirement number. The health insurance is harder because if somebody has a child and goes from a 2-person to a family plan in the middle of the year, we had no way to know that, and that's a huge cost difference.
Okay.
But again, across an organization our size, if we look year over year and trended on that, all that stuff kind of tends to work itself out.
Thanks.
You got there.
I learn things by asking questions.
You got, I mean, in 3 meetings, you got to
That's
the root
correct.
of the, you got to the root.
Understand, I'm gonna ask the same questions next year, because my memory's going, but I got it for right now, it's like a snapshot right now. I
Some
got it.
Prevagen for Christmas.
Next, we'll try to get it organized just a little better.
Yeah, so to get back to the question, do we want that line, or do we want to, have questions for you? Terry, big thing for me is any big breakage or big differences.
Big changes, yeah.
Maintenance contracts, we have a pretty significant,
There's some, and then there's some that have shifted around
Okay.
into different categories, so you'll see some that are a little bit lower, some that are more. Maintenance contracts, for example, anything that, previously either I didn't have, such as phones,
Yep.
which I do now,
Yep.
or things that were purchased, and then after they were purchased, then they go on to a maintenance contract, to go through.
The other one, that Terry and I spoke about was, at the bottom of page 44, the 4071 account, which is the software/IT subscriptions. In 2018, you'll see the actual was $11,000. The budget for 2021 is over $250,000. Really, because Terry and I just had this conversation last week, that's just indicative of what the software industry is doing now. It used to be, when we bought a big enterprise software system, we paid $100,000 for it, and then it was ours. It doesn't work that way anymore. You pay every year based on the number of users per month. So some of that is just Terry working with Al
Licensing fees.
to just change how we're accounting for it so that it more accurately reflects to all of you what we're really paying for. So that's not that she's just spending tons of money on subscriptions and likes magazines. That's the way software is done now.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of the subscriptions in the past, we just didn't have that category, to be able to break things out.
Yep.
where were they in the past?
Under the computer line, I think, so that would have been your, where did we have that one? The 4360, which is toward the bottom of page 46.
Yeah.
No, that's our supplies one.
Where
did we used to look at?
I remember too.
I thought we had a just computer line for a while.
I want
Yeah.
to say they might have been under me.
Well, and it might have been before 18, so it might not show up.
Yeah. It wasn't in the computer equipment line.
It could have been under maintenance contract, if I recall correctly, because when I first started in 2018, that was my first budget year, 3 weeks after I started.
Yeah.
And, we weren't done consolidating the maintenance contract at that point. So we
That's
picked
right.
up quite a few more maintenance
And
contracts.
big ones too,
from,
like the BOE
Board of
and,
Elections and some of those after that. And so I'm pretty sure they were under maintenance contract.
Yeah.
The 4360 is, you know, 2018 was 25,000, and then 2019 was 270,000. I think. Any other questions for, any other, any other questions for, go ahead, Tom.
On page 43, under cameras and storage, $65,000, is that an increase or is that
That's not an increase, so the things that are under computer equipment, most of these are going to be additions. So these are things that maybe we don't have now, that we're either upgrading or adding on to, that's where computer replacements and such would typically fall. So the cameras and storage, that is.
Security cameras, right?
Those are security cameras, so that's the newer category that I've picked up. And that's for the Burgoyne location, and then adding the storage to this location as well.
So what's the change in that category from last year? You can't really break that out from here.
Probably not.
You gotta be, just, is it a lot or is it just about the same?
Well, when you look at the total category, it's only a couple $1,000s more than what the amended budget was for this year. Overall, the projects that are in there, that is a combination of the projects that I would have previously presented to you folks in the capital project line.
I just didn't remember that one being that high.
So it was when we first discussed it in the capital plan. And so to Terry's point, that's what this line has kind of become, that $150,000 that we had in the capital plan, that after we tried to implement that for a year and then kept running into the fact that a lot of the things we were buying didn't meet the accounting rules for a capital plan, that's where this is.
Okay.
So they can still be part of the capital plan so that you all can be aware that those things will come up. You know, we're gonna have recurring costs in terms of server replacement, storage replacement, and different types of hardware replacement as you move forward. But I agree that it doesn't technically qualify as a capital expense. You know, it's gonna be something that'll be a little bit smaller because you may end up with, 100 computers a year or, any number of things. But when you break those down into individual, they are smaller.
Well, it's kind of good to see things like that broken out anyway, so you know just what it costs you to do all these elegant little things that we
Yeah,
all think we ought to do.
and how important they are.
Right.
Quick question, I'll try to.
Carrie, on the, expenses, a lot of these expenses probably came from other departments, just in reallocating funds. So do those other departments see a decrease as IT sees an increase? Yes, Chris?
Yeah.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, so as an example, that maintenance contract for Board of Elections that Terry was just talking about was like $64,000 or $54,000, something like that. I don't know, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
When we moved it into Terry's IT budget, it came out of the DOE budget. Similarly, we used to kind of put, I need a new laptop, I'll put it in my budget over here in Public Defender. That's all in her.
Some of that moved last year though, too.
Most of it moved last
I was
year.
gonna say, some of that moved in the past.
It's been the last 2 or 3 years. We've been consolidating and, picking up a few stragglers here and there. And I think we got a pretty darn good handle on it this year. I think we left some in DSS for claiming purposes, and we might have a little bit in public health, but similarly, that's for Title VI claiming stuff. But other than that, I think pretty much everything's in Terry's budget now.
One more question. With the COVID-19, do we just not put anything in there after December 31st, 2020, or are we going to have categories as we go along if we need it?
If you're referring to our attempts to obtain reimbursement from FEMA,
Right.
then they changed the rules of the game on us effective September 15th. So what we're doing right now is we're in the final stages. I believe our first application is already in. The second application is close to being ready to submit. We're going to try to get every penny that we can for what we've already spent. Going forward, we now have very clear information from FEMA and DHSES that if it's not PPE and it's not directly tied to medical care, our expenses will not be reimbursable. So if we have continuing expenses after the end of 2020, moving into 2021, we'll just have to have discussions with the board, and the decision will have to be made under the assumption that it's 100% local money.
So what they've determined is this is our new normal and deal with it.
In a nutshell, yes. I think honestly what they did was when they did the initial emergency declaration and the enabling, whatever you call it, from FEMA, they didn't realize how broad they made it. And then what they were doing was spending all their time fighting with us when you had all these little entities that were making pretty compelling cases that we had all of these expenses that were directly tied to COVID, and that's not really what FEMA wanted to be involved in. They wanted to be involved in direct, immediate response to the pandemic, laying hands on somebody, you know, putting PPE in place in nursing homes kind of stuff. And so I think after about 6 months of fighting with all of us, they just changed the rules and said, okay, from this date forward, it's different.
Thank you.
That's it, Sue? Thanks, Chris. Terry, one of the, going back to, 2020 computer equipment, you know, just to address the concerns that some might have in the room, 20 new laptops. Can you speak to that? You know, we spoke about it on the phone yesterday, but go ahead and, you know, just kind of give an outline of what, you know, the next year would look like.
Yeah, so the 20 laptops I put in here were really just continued replacements. With COVID and everything that happened this year and the remote workforce, we do have the loaner laptops that have been out there, but we found that there's a lot of people that are requesting, and rightly so, I think, replacements of desktops and laptops.
Replacement desktops.
Yeah. So the computer replacement plan has changed a little bit, and you'll notice there's no desktop purchase in here for this year. We still have some desktops in stock that we can roll out as needed, but a lot of people are moving more to laptops with a VPN connection in case. And so we've been actually using the loaner laptops to replace desktops recently to be able to get people so that they're going to be able to function in case we get shut down again.
What is a Blade phone room?
What's that?
Blade phone room.
So a blade is a switch that would go in the phone room. So it's a phone room to the phone. I guess I didn't put that. I'm sorry.
I was thinking, what am I thinking? Over there.
You're gonna ask that question again next year, aren't you?
See, I try to keep it so that it's, yeah.
Well, back to Sue's question, I thought it was very good. As much as we may not like what we get reimbursed for with COVID, whenever you get direct detail and you know what can be used, that can be used, that's exactly what you're after. There's nothing worse than calling 3 different people and getting 3 different answers and you don't know which way to go.
Agreed.
So if they've got that down pat, now I'm happy with that. That's,
Yep, now we know.
now we know. We're good.
Like G.I. Joe said, that's half the battle.
Any other questions, for Terry?
If you want, we can run through each category and take those individually, whatever works for you.
No additional questions? All right, excellent. Budget officer, good? With the budget.
Budget officer's good at this point.
Other business, one of the other things Terry and I spoke about yesterday. Oh, go ahead, Sue. You're on mute.
Okay. Terry, if we're not going to go line by line, I was going to wait, but the thing with Salem, the broadband circuits, is there any way that while you have more power than I might have, that we can get more circuits in Salem to increase the internet conductivity out here?
I wish that was inside my power. Unfortunately, it's not.
Sue,
But if there was anything I could do, I promise you.
Can't hear you, Sue, it's bad connection, can't hear you.
I thought you might have a magic wand, Terry. You seem to have one, and thanks for all your hard work because, phew, we've needed you and you've done a great job. Thank you.
So we'll keep working on Laura. Any other questions for Terry, in regards to the budget? All right. One of the things Terry and I spoke about on the phone yesterday was in regards to, you know, we had a conversation and a lot of dialogue about the supervisors getting laptops and you know, what were some of the, you know, best, what could be a best practice moving forward with supervisors to be able to have, you know, adequate use of, you know, some information that can only be on site here, more remotely for the supervisors. So, we've spoken about, you know, SharePoint service. You know, I asked Terry if you know, what her thoughts were in regards to, you know, what the best practice would be, and if you could, you know, speak that, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll share my thoughts. In terms of a laptop, I think the laptops are great tools, and I love the fact that we can have them available for anybody that needs them. I think that especially with Zoom, it allows us to be able to provide support if people have problems. But I don't think that it needs to be a requirement for people to necessarily take a laptop if they'd rather use their own devices, just to understand that then they're kind of on their own in terms of support and everything along with that. However, the one thing that I do feel strongly about that I really think that we should consider is to look at requiring, all supervisors to use county email addresses. With the county email addresses, that gives us the ability to secure all the county information. And then anything that we would want to share that should be shared privately, we can do through creating a SharePoint site. I mean, it's all protected by the county email address, the credentials, and multi-factor authentication, so the two-factor for people to sign in, and we could easily put up SharePoint. For anybody that doesn't know SharePoint, it's essentially a website that we would build. It would be like an intranet that you would have to log in and be authenticated, but we could share anything that you wanted to share through there. And it would be very simple for the folks in the board supervisor's office to be able to put things in. It would just be like a file folder for them that would sync right up there. Then you would have the ability to get to it from anywhere, from any device, and it would still be secure.
Is that a large expense?
We already own the product. It's just labor.
All right.
It's labor, it's sitting down and designing what we would like to put up there, how we'd like it to look. And we have an in-house person who's adept at that. He could very easily, actually, he would love to do that, if given the opportunity, honestly. But,
Well, I guess my question on that is if you have one person building that, is that still a lot cheaper than having the laptops provided for the supervisors? Because you're paying somebody to be doing this all the time too.
well,
So there is an expense, it's hidden in their actual wages.
yeah, I think it'd be more in addition, so it would be a one-time, their time to go through and take, a little while to complete the project.
Yeah.
But once it's there and it's built, just like a website. So then it's there, and then you may have tweaks every now and then.
Very good.
For the future, I would love us to develop an intranet. I know that's kind of something that's been tried in the past. I think they tried it through Civic Plus, which is kind of pretty neat, and I don't know that had a lot of success. But now that we have Microsoft 365, the SharePoint services are something that's built in, and especially with all the COVID that we've had a lot higher adoption rate of Teams.
Yeah.
Those types of things that all integrate, and all of the teams integrate with the SharePoint sites that can be built out, and I think that it has a lot of potential to be able to build a county-wide intranet site that's based on department where some things are shared public. I mean, really it would be per department what they want to share, and it would fall on them to maintain it, but it's a very simple platform. We already own it. There's so much potential in Fire 365 that we're just skimming the surface right now.
There's other cost savings I would see as a result of that too, reduction in paper,
Yeah.
printed and things like that, so, there's, we're already paying for the service. We just gotta have somebody build it and administrators who put the documents up, so it's no more than a little bit of training for the administrators to put the documentation up there. And it's all secure, so it makes a lot of sense.
And that's the main thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all secure.
It's the security and also being able to make it easy enough for supervisors to get into it, and that it's not a Fort Knox, and you're already logged with your email, it's just an extension of your county email.
The alternative is provide everybody with a laptop, require you to have a county account that you sign into, put a VPN on it, but that really kind of complicates things a little bit, I think, in today's world. Whereas the other way, doing it through 365 and through the SharePoint site really allows flexibility. So then people that want to have the county issued laptops can, that need them, because not everybody's going to have everything available, and then people that don't can still feel comfortable accessing the information, and we can still feel comfortable sharing the information in a secure fashion.
That's important.
So I asked Terry, and I had a conversation yesterday, that she would speak to that, just to, educate the rest of the supervisors on that, and we can have a further dialogue.
And that was my biggest concern, was the security, because it was one thing if you just didn't want a laptop, but the other part was, what does it do to the security of our system? Because one malware or ransomware that gets through, and if it came through one of our personal computers, that's a whole lot more than what it costs for a few computers. So
Well,
that was my concern.
That's always a risk, so that goes both directions. That's probably one of my biggest things is email. Email is where ransomware comes from most of the time. And so if you have a county-issued laptop, and you're checking county-issued email only on that, then we have it protected. We've got the county-issued email protected, we've got the laptop protected, and so for the most part, you should be set not to infect the network. However, if you have a county-issued laptop and you open up your personal Gmail account on it and open something you shouldn't, then you stand a chance of infecting the county because of your personal email, and that's why we have the blocks in place. For the county employees, you'll notice people can't get the, their Hotmail or their Gmail or those type of places anymore because of the blocks we have in place. But the same thing goes for your personal laptop, if
So
you
you
have a
bring up-
personal device.
You bring up a good point, because sometimes, like, my town email sends something that I need to see at the county. Can I just send that to my county email? Is that fine?
You
From
can't.
the town email to the county email? Or is that not protected, or is it protected because it's coming to the county email?
Yeah, I mean, if you forward it, then all of the policies we have in place will filter that email.
Okay,
Take a look at it. There's nothing.
so that shouldn't do any harm. That's,
So it shouldn't, but that's also where the training and everything comes in that we've talked about in the past, is there is no magic wand, there's no special pill that I'm gonna be able to buy or a special appliance that I can put in place that says, okay, no matter what, you don't have to worry about it, you can check all your email all the time, and you're never gonna have a problem, you're never going to affect the network. It's not true. There's always people looking to get around it. We, I feel, do a really good job in terms of the content filtering we have in place, the email filtering that we have in place, the training we put in place. We have all of the layers of the onion, if you will, is how I've always described it in this technology industry. It's about layers. Training of the employees is probably one of the biggest things, and that's something that you'll hear more about in the near future. But, all of those things are only as good as the person sitting behind the computer and looking at what you're looking at on the screen. So it's just super important to have those and be protected. But there isn't one thing that I can tell you today that's going to protect everybody 100% all the time. It's an ever-changing industry. And tomorrow, somebody's going to find another new hole and another new product that then needs to have a patch created to patch that hole. It's out there.
it'll work.
So you pick up on that point a little bit, I mean, there are people out there sitting in their home trying to beat all these systems. And while most of our Trojans and our virus and antivirus software is updated probably on an hourly basis, it's just a fraction of a second, someone can beat it and get in.
And ransomware is one of the worst things.
That's the worst.
And I've had a lot of experience with ransomware in the IT consulting industry, and it's not fun. But there's so many ways that it can get through, and the emails are tricky. And that's most of the time where it comes. And I can guarantee you that nobody ever comes to work in the morning and says, I'm going to click on an email link and infect my whole network today. It doesn't happen, but
So it was good.
But it can happen.
The other day, I got an email from Amazon saying, thank you for your purchase of the brand new iPhone. And I was like, I don't know what this is talking about. So I went to my account first to make sure my account wasn't corrupted first, and then I realized it was just a bad email. But I'm still watching my account to make sure that I didn't actually purchase an iPhone, so.
and that's what they're after. They
Right.
say, oh,
It was so
I didn't
real.
purchase an iPhone, click that link.
It was so real too. It was, Amazon's logo and everything, so.
Very easy to trade logos and websites.
Right.
And you build a website that mirrors exactly what the other website looks like.
God bless you. You're on mute.
Gary, it's so funny. It wasn't funny at all, but last week I actually got a scam through my phone text message. That was very, very real. It was the first time I had gotten that ever. And was shocked because I always think of emails and, Facebook, social media, but to have it come across my text in my cell phone. Does that cross over? Will that cross over into other things when you have
For
that?
anything on your phone, certainly can.
It was pretty
Another bad thing,
sophisticated.
once you put the password in one time, most people are creatures of habit, and they will use a similar password for other sites, and once they have it, then they're out there, and they'll start using it.
Whew. Amazing. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Terry? Seeing none, no other business, I'm motion to adjourn the IT committee.
And we will also adjourn finance. Thank you, everyone.